Hello, my name is Olivia, and I'm 34 years old. I live in Denver, Colorado, and work as a financial director at a tech company. People often assume I have it all together, a stable career, no kids, and enough savings to travel or invest. What they don't see is how often I've been the helper in my family, the fixer, the bank. But I never expected that the very people I kept supporting would become the ones to betray me so deeply. It all started one warm weekend in late spring. My younger brother, Liam, was getting married in San Diego. The ceremony was a beautiful beachside affair, soft waves, pale blue sky, white linen chairs, and twinkle lights strung across palm trees. Guests laughed, posed for photos, and danced barefoot on the sand. You'd never know the entire setup had been mostly funded by me. Liam and his fiancée had just finished paying off their student loans, and my parents were both retired and living off a fixed income. So, I stepped in without hesitation. I paid for the venue deposit, the catering, the flowers, and even the photography. Everyone praised Liam and his new wife for hosting such a dreamy wedding. No one mentioned my name. I didn't mind. Or at least, I told myself I didn't. After all, it was family. My boyfriend, Ryan, flew out with me from Denver. We'd been together for 2 years, and though we hadn't made any formal plans for marriage yet, we both knew where things were headed. He saw how much I gave to my family. And more importantly, he saw how little I received in return. But he never pushed. He let me come to my own realizations in my own time. On the evening of the wedding, after the final dance, I stood at the edge of the venue with my sandals in my hand, the ocean breeze brushing against my skin. Liam hugged me tightly and said, "Thanks for everything, Liv. You really came through." I smiled and squeezed his hand, but deep down, a small ache pinched my chest. It wasn't about being thanked, it was about being seen. That night, Ryan and I returned to the hotel, exhausted but content. We talked about the wedding, laughed about the aunt who cried too much during the vows, and eventually fell asleep wrapped in each other's arms. I didn't know that while I was drifting off, something was already going terribly wrong, something that would change everything. The next morning, Ryan and I were checking out of the hotel. I had just tossed my duffel bag over my shoulder and was scrolling through my phone to pull up the hotel confirmation when I decided to open my banking app. Just a quick check before heading to the airport. What I saw made my fingers stiffen and my throat tighten. My account balance had dropped, not by a little. It was down by $19,000. I froze in the middle of the hotel lobby. People brushing past me, carts rolling over tiled floors, the scent of fresh coffee in the air. All of it faded. My eyes locked on the screen, unable to blink. "What is it?" Ryan asked, wheeling our luggage behind me. I didn't answer right away. My mouth had gone dry. "Ryan," I said, almost in a whisper. $19,000 is gone." He took my phone from my hand, already tapping into the transaction history. "Did you make any large transfers recently?" he asked. But we both knew the answer. Just last week, I had over $28,000 in my checking. I hadn't bought anything major since then. I watched him scroll through the history, his jaw tightening. "Here," he said, tilting the screen. "Look. 3 transfers. All done within the same minute last night. $6,000 to Jenna Collins. $7,000 to Scott Collins. $6,000 to Marcia Green. Each marked Zelle transfer. All at 10:47 p.m. My breath caught. "That's when I was in the shower," I said slowly. "After the wedding." Ryan looked at me, his expression turning serious. "You didn't send these, right?"
No.
"Absolutely not." "Then someone used your phone," he said flatly. "They had access to your app. And your password." My legs felt unsteady as we got into the elevator. I leaned against the mirrored wall, trying to calm the roaring in my ears. I had always been the helper. The one who paid the bills, bought the emergency plane tickets, sent money without questions. But this wasn't help. This was theft. And the worst part was I already knew who did it. Just as we stepped into the hotel lobby, my phone rang. It was her.
Mom.
I took a slow breath, then answered. "Mom," I said, trying to keep my voice from trembling, "I need to ask you something." There was a pause on the other end of the line, followed by the sound of clinking dishes and distant chatter, like she was in the kitchen with someone else. Her tone was casual, even cheerful. "Morning, honey. Everything okay?" I swallowed. 3 large transfers were made from my bank account last night. To you, Jenna, and Scott.
Do you know anything about that?
Another pause. Then, she actually chuckled like I just reminded her of something amusing.
Oh, that.
I was wondering when you'd notice. Honestly, it was less than I expected. My heart stopped. What do you mean? Jenna said it was wasteful to keep that much sitting in your account, she said breezily. So we split it. Think of it as a wedding gift for Liam. I stood frozen in the hotel lobby, unable to move, eyes fixed on nothing. My ears were ringing. "You took my phone while I was in the shower?" I asked, my voice cracking. "Oh, don't be dramatic, Olivia. You're single, doing well, no kids. You should help out. That's what family does." Ryan stepped closer and gently took the phone from my hand. "Ma'am," he said calmly but firmly, "what you just admitted to is a criminal act. Taking money from someone's account without permission is theft." She snapped. "Are you a lawyer now? Or just someone who enjoys meddling in family matters?" I snatched the phone back. "Mom," I said, my voice lower now. "Who took my phone and sent those transfers?" "Jenna," she replied without shame. "She guessed your password. It wasn't hard. Something about your old cat, right?" And then she hung up. I stared at the blank screen in disbelief. The woman who had raised me had just laughed in my face after helping herself to my life savings. It wasn't just betrayal, it was bold, unapologetic theft from the people I had trusted the most. Ryan took my hand, gently but firmly. "We're not letting this go." And neither was I. We didn't even stop to breathe. After the call ended, I told Ryan I wanted to speak to them in person. I needed to see their faces when I asked them why. He didn't question me. He just nodded and drove us to my mother's house. The drive through the San Diego suburbs felt surreal. The sun was out, birds chirped, and the sky was the same soft blue from the wedding. But I felt nothing. It was like I had been scooped out from the inside. Before we could ring the bell, the door opened. Jenna stood there in a tank top and yoga pants, holding a coffee mug. She gave me a half smile, like I was early for brunch.
Oh.
"Olivia, you came back." I walked right past her. Inside, my mother Marcia was sitting in the living room sorting through Liam's wedding photos. Scott, Jenna's husband, had his feet on the coffee table, sipping espresso like it was Sunday morning and nothing had happened. "We need to talk," I said, standing firm in the center of the room. Marcia looked up calmly. "About the money?" "Yes," I said, my voice sharp. "I want to know who gave you the right to go into my bank account and take $19,000. Jenna shrugged and plopped onto the couch. "You should have used a better password. Mr. Whiskers was too easy." She laughed like it was a joke. Scott chuckled. "I told her not to do it, but she said you wouldn't care." "You think I wouldn't care?" My fists clenched.
My voice was rising.
"You took $19,000 from me while I was in the shower. You didn't ask. You didn't even hint. You just helped yourselves." Marcia stood slowly, setting down the photo album. "Olivia, don't blow this out of proportion. It was for Liam's wedding. You're single. You make good money. Liam's starting a new life. Families help each other." "Helping means I agree to it," I snapped. "What you did was theft." Jenna rolled her eyes. "We didn't ask because you always act generous but never really give. We're tired of begging." Scott added with a smirk, "You still have $9,000 left. We didn't clean you out. That was it." My voice dropped to a cold whisper. "You didn't just take my money. You stole my trust." The room fell silent. Then Marcia's face twisted. "How dare you speak to me like that?" she shouted, and before I could react, she raised her hand and slapped me across the face. The sound rang through the room like thunder. Ryan was on his feet in an instant, grabbing my arm and stepping in front of me. "Enough," he growled, turning toward Marcia. "Touch her again, and you'll deal with the police." I stood there, my cheek burning, my heart pounding, my mind blank. That slap didn't just hurt my skin. It shattered whatever illusion I had left of this being a misunderstanding. It wasn't. They knew exactly what they were doing. I looked around at the three of them. Now it's not just theft, I said. It's assault. And I turned and walked out the door, this time without looking back. We drove back to the hotel in silence. I held Ryan's hand the entire way, but I couldn't speak. My cheeks still stung from the slap, but what hurt more was the cold certainty settling inside me. This wasn't a moment of madness. This was a pattern I had never wanted to admit. By the time we landed in Denver that evening, I was exhausted in a way sleep couldn't fix. I didn't unpack. I didn't check my email. I just sat on the couch and stared at the floor, my mind spiraling. The next afternoon, I opened my laptop and began pulling up bank statements. I told myself it was just curiosity. But really, I needed proof. Proof that this wasn't in my head, that it wasn't just one bad night, one poor choice by Jenna or Marcia. I needed to face the truth I had been avoiding for years. I printed out my statements and started highlighting every financial transaction related to my family. Red for Jenna and Scott. Blue for Marcia. Yellow for Liam. Line by line, month by month. Soon, the stack of paper on my dining table grew thick. Over the past 3 years, I had transferred just over $42,000. $42,000. Rent help, tuition, car repairs, medical emergencies, birthday parties, Christmas gifts, roof leaks, lost phones, just till payday. Just this once. There was no just once. Every time I hesitated, they layered on guilt like frosting. We're family, Olivia. You have a good job. You're not struggling. You don't even have kids. It's not like you need the money. I had believed them. I thought I was being loving, supportive, responsible, but I hadn't been helping. I had been enabling. I remembered the time Jenna called me sobbing because her daughter Madison had supposedly broken her arm and they couldn't afford the ER bill. I wired $1,500 in the middle of my workday. Later, I found out insurance had covered everything. Jenna had used the money to put a down payment on a new iPhone for Scott. Ryan sat down beside me as I highlighted another transaction. Have you eaten anything today? I shook my head. Not hungry. Look at this. They've been using me like an ATM. I was too blind to see it. He gently took one of the pages from my hand. You weren't blind. You were trying to love them. I didn't reply. I couldn't. Then he asked quietly, have you thought about taking action? I hesitated. If a stranger had stolen $19,000 from my account, I said slowly, I'd report it. He nodded. So why not now? I stared at the pages, my hand tightening around the highlighter. Why not, indeed? The next morning, I sat in front of my laptop, staring at the document I had labeled the truth. It contained every dollar I had given to my family over the past 3 years, complete with dates, amounts, screenshots, and text conversations. It felt more like a crime report than a family history. Ryan placed a cup of tea beside me. You don't have to do this today, he said gently. Yes, I do, I replied. If I don't take a stand now, I never will. He nodded without saying another word. I called an old colleague of mine, who now worked at a law firm specializing in financial cases. She connected me with the Colorado office for financial crimes, specifically a woman named Tina Hargrove, a seasoned officer in the Family Financial Crimes Unit. Miss Olivia Brooks? Tina asked when I arrived at the office later that afternoon. She was in her 40s, composed, and wore no-nonsense glasses that framed sharp, perceptive eyes.
Yes, I
have something I need to report. I think it qualifies as financial exploitation by family members. Let's sit down, she said calmly. It took me nearly an hour to walk her through everything. Liam's wedding, the $19,000 transfers from my phone, the slap, and then the years of unreturned loans and guilt-laced manipulation. Tina took notes silently, only pausing to ask precise, pointed questions. At the end, she asked, do you have evidence? Ryan opened the folder we had brought and handed it over. Bank statements, transfer logs, screenshots of texts. Audio from the confrontation at Marcia Green's house. Tina flipped through the file. Her expression didn't change, but I saw her eyes narrow slightly. "This isn't uncommon," she said. "What is uncommon is someone actually speaking up." I nodded. For a long time, I thought staying silent was the peaceful option. But it's not peace if you're the only one being hurt. She nodded back. "We'll begin a preliminary investigation. We'll verify the transactions, pull digital logs, track the IP addresses for the transfers, and interview those involved. If we find evidence of unauthorized access and intent, it will be sent to the district attorney." I hesitated. "Will they be arrested?" "That depends," Tina replied. "If intent is proven and the case moves forward, yes. But either way, there will be legal consequences." As we stood to leave, Ryan reached for my hand. I was shaking slightly, but not from fear. I had just declared legal war, not on strangers, but on my own blood. But I didn't feel regret. I felt ready. It didn't take long for word to spread. The first message came early the next morning while I was still tossing in bed, eyes red from a sleepless night. "Marcia, Mom, Olivia, what are you doing? Did you really report this? Call me now." 10 minutes later, my phone buzzed nonstop. Text after text from Jenna, Scott, and even a couple from Liam, though his tone felt hesitant, unsure. But Jenna and Scott? Their words were venomous. Jenna, "Are you out of your mind? You're trying to send your whole family to jail over a few $1,000s? Scott, "You're unbelievably selfish. You're ruining Madison's life. You don't care about the kids. Marcia, I raised you. And now you're turning on your own family? You have no heart." I stared at my phone in silence. Not a single message contained the word sorry. Not one acknowledgement of what they had done. Just guilt, anger, accusations. Ryan came into the room, holding 2 mugs of coffee. He looked at the screen lighting up in my hand. "Still blaming you, huh?" I nodded. "It feels like I betrayed them." He sat beside me and gently took the phone from my hand. "You didn't betray them, Olivia. They betrayed you. They're not mad because you did something wrong. They're mad because, for the first time, you didn't let them use you." That hit deeper than anything. I remembered all the times I hesitated before sending money, and how quickly they'd twist it. Family is supposed to help. You're not struggling, so why are you so selfish? We wouldn't ask if it wasn't important. But it was never just once. And it was never paid back. That afternoon, my phone rang again. I nearly let it go to voicemail, but something told me I needed to face it. I answered. Marcia's voice was sharp, her tone indignant. "You've disappointed me, Olivia. What will people think when they hear you're dragging your family into court? You're humiliating your own blood." I closed my eyes. My cheeks still remembered the sting of her hand. "Mom, you took my money. Without permission. You slapped me. You're acting like that's normal." "You have enough," she barked. "You don't even have kids. That money was nothing to you." I kept my voice steady. "No one has the right to take just because they assume I can afford it."
You didn't ask.
"You stole. And that slap? That was assault." "You're pushing yourself out of this family," she warned. "Don't blame me when you end up alone." I took a deep breath. Everyone made their choice when they crossed the line. I'm just finally drawing it. The line went dead. 3 days passed in tense silence. Then, one gray afternoon, as light rain streaked the windows of my Denver apartment, the doorbell rang. Ryan looked up from his laptop. "Were you expecting someone?" I shook my head and went to answer it. Through the glass, I saw a familiar figure standing on the porch, hands stuffed in jacket pockets, shoulders hunched, eyes fixed on the floor. "Liam." I opened the door slowly. "Hey," I said, unsure what to expect. He looked up, his expression a mixture of guilt and sadness. "Can I come in? Just for a few minutes." I hesitated, then stepped aside. We sat at the dining table where my financial documents were still laid out in thick, color-coded piles. Liam glanced at them, but didn't speak right away. The air felt heavy between us. "You doing okay?" he asked softly. "I'm getting by," I said flatly. "You know what's going on, right?" He nodded. "I do." I know everything now. I just didn't know what to do. Why are you here, Liam? I asked, folding my arms. He took a deep breath. Because I need to tell you the truth. I didn't know they were going to take your phone that night. I never asked them to. But this isn't the first time I've seen it happen. I narrowed my eyes. What do you mean? I overheard Jenna and Scott talking last year about how to borrow from you without upsetting you. I saw Mom keeping a list, birthdays, holidays, back to school, planning what to ask you for, and when. And I stayed silent. I didn't want to be kicked out. I just started a family. I was scared. I said nothing. I was too stunned. Liam looked up at me, eyes glistening. But after you filed the report, Mom told me not to say anything. She said if I got called to court, I should say I didn't know anything. I can't do that, Olivia. Not to you. Not anymore. Tears blurred my vision. Are you saying you'll testify? He nodded. I'll tell the court what I know. I'll tell them it wasn't an accident. It was planned. And it's been happening for years. I reached across the table and took his hand. Are you sure? You know this means they'll turn on you, too. I know, Liam said. But if I have to choose, I choose truth. I choose you. The preliminary hearing was scheduled for a rainy Monday morning at the Jefferson County Courthouse. Ryan drove me there in silence. I sat in the passenger seat, gripping a folder full of printouts, evidence, and pain. When we entered the courtroom, my heart felt like it might crack open. Across the aisle, Jenna and Scott sat stiffly, dressed in business casual, their faces expressionless. Neither of them would look at me. My mother, Marcia, wasn't there. She had submitted a formal excuse citing health issues. A convenient way to avoid facing what she had done. But Liam was there. He sat beside me, shoulders tense but steady. I placed a hand on his knee briefly. He nodded, breathing slowly. The judge entered, Honorable Judge Nora Higgins, a sharp-eyed woman in her 60s with short gray hair and a demeanor that demanded attention. When she spoke, the courtroom fell into silence. Today we are hearing preliminary evidence regarding case number 8826B. Allegations include unauthorized access to a personal bank account, misappropriation of assets, and one count of physical assault.
Yes.
That last part was for the slap. The prosecution laid out everything: the bank transfers, the unauthorized access through my stolen phone, the years of unreturned money, screenshots, voice memos, statements. Then it was Liam's turn. He walked slowly to the witness box, his suit slightly wrinkled, but his voice unwavering. I didn't want to believe what was happening at first, he said, but I saw it. My sister Olivia was being used. Not helped. Used. He described overhearing Scott and Jenna strategizing how to ask for money without setting off alarms. He spoke of our mother keeping a calendar of financial asks. He even admitted knowing Jenna had guessed my password years ago. She bragged about it more than once. Then he looked straight at the judge and said something I'll never forget. I stayed silent because I was scared. But I'm done being scared. This wasn't just about money. They took her trust. And they never apologized. They just expected more. A hush fell over the room. Judge Higgins watched him quietly, her pen tapping against her folder. Ryan squeezed my hand. When the hearing ended, I stood beside Liam in the hallway. Are you okay? He nodded. I lost them today. I looked him in the eye and whispered, No.
You still have me.
And for the first time in my life, I'm proud of you. A week later, I returned to the Jefferson County Courthouse for the final ruling. I wore a simple navy dress and held Ryan's hand the entire walk through the courthouse doors. Jenna and Scott were already seated inside, their expressions blank, but their body language rigid. Marcia had once again failed to show up. No surprise. Judge Nora Higgins entered the courtroom and began speaking without delay. The court has reviewed all submitted evidence: the unauthorized bank transfers, the text message logs, witness testimony from Mr. Liam Brooks, and the audio recording captured at the defendant's residence. This includes the physical assault committed by Marcia Green during the confrontation. I inhaled sharply. Even if Marcia wasn't present, the slap hadn't been forgotten. Justice had a longer memory than my family expected. The court finds the defendants, Jenna Collins and Scott Collins, guilty of unauthorized access and misappropriation of personal assets, totaling $19,000. Furthermore, the court recognizes emotional harm and physical injury suffered by the plaintiff. Judge Higgins adjusted her glasses and continued. 1. Jenna and Scott Collins are sentenced to 3 years of supervised probation. 2. They are ordered to repay the full $19,000 to Ms. Olivia Brooks within 90 days. 3. An additional $6,000 is awarded in emotional damages. 4. Ms. Marcia Green, though absent, is held accountable for physical assault and fined $2,000. She is also sentenced to mandatory anger management counseling and a 6-month suspended jail term. 5. A 5-year restraining order is issued against all 3, Jenna, Scott, and Marcia, preventing contact with Olivia Brooks by any means. 6. All court costs are to be paid in full by the defendants. The room was silent. Jenna's face turned ghostly pale. Scott whispered something to their attorney, who looked away. I sat frozen, not from fear, but from the strange, quiet weight of justice finally settling in. Liam touched my shoulder. You did it. Ryan leaned in. You didn't just protect your money. You protected your peace. I stood slowly, my eyes scanning the courtroom one last time. I had entered this place feeling like the accused, unsure, emotional, torn. But now I stood with my head high. I hadn't broken my family. They broke themselves. I simply chose not to be a silent victim anymore. The courthouse steps were slick with melting rain when we walked out, but I barely noticed. The world felt different now, not softer, not easier, but clearer. That same evening, I sat curled up on the couch with a blanket and tea, staring at my muted phone. I hadn't turned it on since the verdict. But eventually curiosity won. I powered it up. Dozens of missed calls, a handful of voicemails, and one new text from an unknown number. You think you've won? We're not going to kneel. I didn't need to check who it was from. I deleted it without a second thought. 3 weeks passed quietly. Scott lost his job after the court records were flagged in his company's background system. Jenna and Scott's joint accounts were frozen by court order. Then, foreclosure proceedings began on their house. I got a text from Liam. Just wanted you to know. They missed 2 mortgage payments. Madison's school had to revoke her enrollment due to late tuition. They're falling apart. I read it calmly. No satisfaction. No revenge. Just truth catching up. A few days later, I received a voice message from a woman I didn't recognize. Hi, my name is Teresa. I read your article on the forum. I've been financially supporting my daughter for 30 years. I used to think I was just being a good mom. Your story helped me realize I wasn't being kind. I was being controlled. Thank you. I pressed play again, tears welling. For the first time in years, I didn't feel alone. More messages followed. Emails from strangers. Women. Men. Even a man who wrote, "Thank you, Olivia. Because of you, I finally stopped sending my unemployed brother $500 every month. He called me heartless. But I finally feel free." Each message chipped away at the weight I'd carried for so long. Meanwhile, Ryan became my quiet anchor. He never pressured me to forgive. He never tried to fix my pain. He just stayed. One evening, while I was watering the tiny herb garden on our balcony, he came outside with 2 glasses of red wine and a small navy blue velvet box. He didn't say much. I thought I'd wait, he said. But then I realized, if there's one person I want to wake up next to for the rest of my life, it's you. Inside was a simple platinum ring with a single diamond. It wasn't flashy. It wasn't extravagant. It was perfect. I whispered, yes. Spring came slowly that year. The snow melted into soft, blooming mornings. And on one such day, under a canopy of cherry blossoms by Seward Lake, I walked down a simple white path lined with petals, toward the man who never left my side. Ryan and I got married in an intimate ceremony. No flashing lights. No large guest list. Just the people who mattered. Liam, Ryan's mother Helen, his sister Maya, and a few close friends who had stood beside me when my own family did not. The sun filtered through the trees like it was blessing us. When Liam stood up to give his speech, his voice trembled. I once stayed silent because I feared losing my family. But my sister Olivia taught me that real family doesn't make you afraid. They don't take advantage of your kindness. They protect it. He raised his glass toward me. I'm proud of you, and I'm honored to be your brother. Tears slid down my face, but not from pain, from healing. I looked around and realized something important. I hadn't lost a family. I had simply let go of those who never truly loved me, and I had made space for those who did. When we returned home that night, I stood by the window, sipping tea, gazing at our wedding photo. Ryan's smile in the frame felt like the softest promise, and in my own eyes, I saw something I hadn't recognized in a long time.
Peace.
Later that month, I published my first article for a community psychology magazine. The title was, I Set Boundaries, and I'm Not Sorry for It. Within days, thousands read it. Some commented. Others emailed. Many cried. And one line was repeated again and again. Thank you. Because of you, I finally said no. I wasn't writing to shame anyone. I was writing for people like me, people who had confused love with sacrifice, who were raised to believe that loyalty meant staying silent while being broken. I had been called cold, selfish, even heartless, not by strangers, but by the people I once would have given my last dollar to. And now I finally understood. Kindness is not letting people hurt you. Love is not financial servitude. And family is not an excuse for abuse. I didn't destroy anything. I simply drew the line. And when I finally let go of those who only valued what I gave, life led me to people who valued who I was. Ryan,
Liam.
Helen, and Maya. The strangers who messaged me. The readers who saw themselves in my words. That little girl inside me, once desperate for approval, had finally grown into a woman who understood her worth. And today, if someone asks me what I gained from all this, I'll smile and say, I didn't just survive. I reclaimed my name, and I chose peace, without apology. If this story touched your heart or reminded you of something personal, don't forget to like the video, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe for more powerful true life stories every week. Your support helps us bring more voices like Olivia's to light.